Welcome to Haitian Poetry Reading with Dr. Celucien Joseph. Haitian Poetry Reading is a new podcast that focuses on Haitian literature, in particular Haitian poetry. We will meet once a week, usually the last week of the month, to read poems written by Haitian poets. In each episode, we will read 2 to 3 poems. The goal or vision of Haitian poetry reading is threefold. First, to share with the audience about the joy or pleasure of poetry reading. Our second goal is to introduce and familiarize the reader with Haitian literature. And the final goal is to celebrate and promote Haitian literature in the world. We are interested in both classic and modern Haitian poetry produced by Haitian and Haitian descent poets in Haiti and the Haitian diaspora. Today it's my pleasure to read in our first episode a poem by Ignace and 2 poems by Brouard. Who was Ignace? What did he write? We can ask the same questions about Brouard. Who was he? What do we know about his literary works? Allow me to share with you a brief biographical information about each individual poet. Afterwards, I will offer an overview of, of their work. I will read in the French language one poem written by Ignace. It is entitled Basses Pyrénées, and it was published in 1836. Similarly, I will read 2 poems written by Brouard, including Les Croix de Martyrs and Solitude. I will also read my English translations of those poems. First, let's begin. Who was Ignace? I'm sharing this biographical information taken from Île en Île. The exact date of birth of Auguste Ignace is not known. What some believe he was born in Port-au-Prince in 1808. Others place his birth later, either in 1812 or 1813. His father, Jean-Pierre No, served as Treasurer General of the Finances under the government of Pétion, Alexandre Pétion, and Jean-Pierre Brouard. After his classical and military studies at the Jonathan's Grenville Institution, the young Ignatius left to continue his training at the Catholic University in New York. Upon his return to Haiti, he first became an aide-camp to President Jean-Pierre Brouard, and then his private secretary. Ignace is a poet, storyteller, novelist, and historian. He collaborated with several Haitian literary journals in the 19th century. With his brother Emile, he initiated a literary movement commonly called the Seneca Group, which brought together the Haitian romantic poets, including the brothers Coriolan, Celine, Beaubrun, Ardouin. Some of his major works include his poems, his poetry collections, I should say, Le Livre de Marie, Pensées du Soir, Poésie complète avec une petite biographie littéraire that was edited by Enoch Trouillot et Christophe Charles in 2000. He also wrote short stories such as Un épisode de la Révolution that was published in 1836, Isalina ou Une scène créole published in 1836, Le Lambi published in 1837. So let's begin with the first poem by Ignace, which he wrote in 1836, Basses Pyrénées. Et moi, voilà jeté, moi, triste passager, sans amour, sans amis, sur un sol étranger, attendait du retour l'heure lente et tardive. Ce ciel est trop désert, ce soleil sans rayon séchant de mon pays, là-bas, sous l'horizon, non point la nature si vive. And I would like to share with you my translation of this wonderful poem, Lower Pyrenees. And here I am thrown as a sad passenger, without love, without friends, on a foreign land, waited for the calm and late hour to come again. This sky is empty, this sun without rays, these fields of my country, over there, under the horizon, do not have such a lively nature. Let's move on to explore the work of Karl Brouard. Karl Brouard was born on December 5th, 1902 in Port-au-Prince to a very wealthy bourgeois Haitian family. His father, Raphael Brouard, was a local merchant, and his mother, Cléomie Guétian, a bourgeois Puritan. The couple had 4 children. Brouard lives a happy childhood in the cool shades of Bizoton. In 1912, he was accepted into the Collège de Père du Saint-Esprit in the 8th grade. He's already a great lover of the Middle Ages, the literature, the history. The following year, that is in 1913, he left the Collège du Saint-Esprit to study under the supervision of the great Haitian historian Cat Poissoir. Then, in his second year of medicine, he fell in love with the beautiful woman of modest origin, Anna Leurbourg. Brouard married her in 1936, 2 years after the Haitian occupation, the American occupation in Haiti. From this union, he and his wife produced 2 children, Cléomie and Olga. In 1927, an important year in Haitian literature. In fact, in the early 1920s, Haitian poets and thinkers produced a cultural movement with its own literary movement, with its own journal. Haitian indigenous, l'ingénieux haïtien. He produced in 1927 Écrit sur du ruban rose. This is a collection of his most important works. The same year, when La Revue Indigène, which I noted, associated with the indigenous movement, he was a member of the editorial board alongside with the writers like Émile Roumet, Normil Sylvain, Jacques Romain, Antonio Vieux, Philippe Toby Marcelin, et Daniel Hutelot. Brouard collaborated with La Trouille. That was another yet short-lived magazine founded in 1927 by Richard Salnave and others. Unfortunately, Karl Brouard was became weak, very weak, by his addiction to alcohol, and he died in Port-au-Prince in November 1965. The government of Haiti held a state funeral to celebrate his legacy. Some of his major works include, as I mentioned before, Écrit sur du ruban rose, published in 1927. And page retrouvée, œuvre en prose et en vers, which is a collected edition published in 1963. I will share with you the first poem by Brouard. It is entitled Les Croix des Martyrs. À la croix des martyrs, les jours qui ne riment aucune horloge sonore s'écoulent calme, paisible, comme un ruisseau. La petite église silencieuse est toujours là, et le gazon vert. Les crotonnes, les passereaux rouges lentement oscillent. Sur le cran de la vie, les heures passent au ralenti. And followed by my translation. The crosses of the martyrs. At the cross of the martyrs, the days that beats no sound clock flow calmly, peacefully like a stream. The silent little church is still there. It is the green grass, the cretons, the red sparrow calmly vacillate on the screen of life. The hours pass in slow motion. Let's look at the second poem by Brouard. It's called Solitude. It's one of my favorite. Seul dans ma chambre, il pleut. Je pense à vous. Ah, si vous m'aimiez un peu, le monde serait mort à mes yeux. Puisque je ne penserai, je ne verrai, je ne vivrai que par vous. Aujourd'hui, des indifférents ont prononcé votre nom et mon cœur a battu très fort. Mon Dieu, que je suis bête! Si je possédais un objet de vous, peut-être ma tristesse serait moins lourde à porter. Mais à quoi bon me leurrer d'espoir fou, des rêves vains, vous portez l'indifférence, comme on porte une fleur à son corsage. Followed by translation. My translation, I should say, loneliness. I chose to translate the title of this poem as loneliness, not solitude. I think loneliness carries a heavier rate. He also describes the tonality, the content of the poet who is a lover. Here it goes. Alone in my room, it's raining. I'm thinking of you. Ah, if you would love me a little, the world would be dead to me. Since I wouldn't think, I wouldn't see, I would only live through you. Today, unconcerned people have announced your name, and my heart beat very hard. My God, how stupid I am if I had kept a souvenir from you. Perhaps my sadness would be less heavy to endure. But what is the use of tricking myself with wild hopes of futile dreams? You bear the indifference as one wears a flower on one's bodice. Thank you again. This is Dr. Celucien Joseph with Haitian Poetry Reading. Today we explored episode 1. We read from Brouard and Ignace No. See you at the end of February.